call the meeting to order. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting?
I move to approve the written.
Okay, it's been a motion to approve it by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Dara. All in favor? Minutes approved. Consent agenda. We need permission for clerk to pay insurance at time of billing, to pay utilities at time of billing, to pay utility incentives before the 25th of the month, to pay theater bills when due, and to pay payment service network bills when due.
So moved.
Been moved by Larry.
Second.
Second by Ed. All in favor? Approved. Second by David. Okay, we have the attorney report up to the top again.
Thank you so much for making that allowance for me. My first matter is that regarding property cleanup, Larry Zweigert's matter is set to come before the court on the 10th of March, which is this Wednesday. I spoke with JR, who actually just outside speaking with JR, and he is mostly in compliance with the exception of finishing painting, which obviously we're not going to have him do in this weather. I'm going to be asking the court to continue until May to allow him additional time, as he has brought the remaining issues into compliance. So that is there. On your emails, you should have a copy of a proposed lease agreement. My understanding is that the CCKCF had voted to lease the police station space, which is across the way. My understanding was that they were going to be utilizing it at this time free of charge, though there may be charges in the future. In speaking with Lila and in her email regarding what had constituted the terms of the agreement, such as that they would be permitted to use the property of the desks and the filing cabinets that are over there, but they may need to have their own renter's insurance, and that there's only 1 meter for this building. I am concerned about the appearance of impropriety as the city is eligible for grants to be received from the CCKCF, and since there is only 1 meter and the city would not be charging them rent, the city would actually be paying for them to use this facility. And as the city is occasionally an applicant, I am concerned about the image that would create or any potential problems which may arise therefrom. In light of this, I have proposed in the draft that the rent be $100 a month. That could be changed to $50. It could be increased to $150. I'm not sure what the utilities are here, but I think at minimum they do need to be paying something to cover the utility costs, because otherwise the city is in fact paying to let them use the facilities, and that could be viewed as improper, for want of a better term.
Lauren, I did see one thing when I was reviewing it on the second page. They are paying for their own telephone and internet.
They are paying for their own telephone and internet, okay. I can make that modification. And then my understanding is that we're still waiting on hearing back. Did you hear back from Furlan?
I did. Some. They haven't found out a definitive answer. They said it would be prudent for the organization to carry its own liability insurance. If somebody gets injured over in that side of the building, there would be a cost to the city as well, but it would be minimal for an endorsement on our policy, basically a landlord endorsement on our policy to allow somebody else to use that space. You could pass that cost along to them. He didn't know what that was going to be. He didn't have that yet. I didn't get in touch with him until this afternoon, so he should have that for us by the next meeting, but that would be his recommendation as far as insurance goes.
Any further discussion? Did you hear back from the
Not yet. I had called the league as well, asking them if they thought that there was any concerns about what she was talking about, the impropriety. The league council did have concerns. He said he needs to do some research. off the cuff, just right off the bat. He says, I do have concerns with that. So he was going to do some research as well, but again, it was just today when I contacted him, so we don't have any information back from the league.
Any indications of what kind of concerns?
The money that they're an organization that gives grants, and the city receives those grants.
It's a concern of bribery. Are we bribing them to give us a grant? Is basically what it comes down to. I mean, the politically correct term is an image of impropriety, but really what it is if we allow them to use it rent-free, the city is actually paying the utilities on this entire building, so we are paying them to occupy this building, and the city is also eligible to apply for grants. And so it could be considered, it could be construed as bribery, and that's certainly something we would not want to happen, and not something we would even want to appear to have happening. If we can avoid that entirely, I understand they do good things for the city as an entity, but the city as a community, as well as all of the community at large of the county, but we want to make sure that we are not even giving an appearance that anything could be unacceptable or perceived.
How soon were they want to get moved in?
Yeah.
Probably, if we could get it by the 1st of April to start, I mean, we'd have to hire someone, but it was all, contingent upon.
Well, then hopefully we can have something back from the league, what they think, plus what we've already done, so we can have it in place so that they could be doing that.
I have a tentative start date of April 1 on the lease, and then I did not yet describe it. It says described on Addendum A. What I would like to do, what I've marked out sometime later this week, I'll get with you on this. I'd like to see it so we can describe it, because obviously it's going to be a shared, it's not a shared space, but it's a shared building, and so we're going to have to adequately describe that portion of it, which I believe we're going to refer to as the east portion in the addendum, but I'd like to go over and see it so that way I've not been in it, and so I would like to see it so we can have a completed and appropriate Schedule A at the time we do take this out of draft form.
And the foundation needs to apply the 25th is when you have to send your information into Hanson. So
Right.
we would
We would have to,
at the next
our
meeting.
proposal to them.
So if we got it approved at the next meeting, that would be all right. That'd be the 22nd.
Cut it short.
Yeah, we're trying to get it done by the 15th. I think we have to submit it by the 15th. I don't know, I group meets again Wednesday, so I don't have the stuff in front of me, but I know we're trying to get it in if it needed to be revised, to get time. And then it would give us time to the 25th. So we were trying to get the 10 days.
That might be rushing it to get something done by then, with them too.
I mean, I guess, with the exception of the insurance clause, and we have to take out telephone and internet, because they'll be paying for their own, I have to make that modification. I mean, I would be comfortable, I see no reason why we couldn't submit the draft to them for their comment. And if they have comments or concerns, I can address those in a revision, and I'll discuss them with the council, and if the council gets it approved, hopefully we can get approved on the 22nd. It's up to the council as to whether or not they would like to share this with CCKCF now, but I don't see, if the council is wanting to allow them, if the city is wanting to allow them to use it, and they are wanting to use it, I don't see any reason why we can't collaborate on any amendments that would need to be made to this contract. So I would...
Everybody agree with that? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay, Derek, if you want to share that with them, and then if there's comments, questions, let me know, please, and then I will revise by the 22nd, and then I will, when I send out the subsequent draft, I will send it to the council, of course, but I will also send it to, I will try to get that done with a little bit of leeway. I'll try to get that done maybe next Monday so that there's another week in which it can be looked over by both parties, and if anyone has any thoughts on the matter, they could give me some feedback on it. But I don't know that much would need to be changed outside of insurance, unless we hear different from the league. Of course, this is all dependent on what counsel for the league says.
Do we know what the utilities cost of this?
It's really hard to tell. I mean, we can't even really compare. I guess we could kind of look at when the police department was over there and how that differs.
That was full-time versus going to be part-time, so it was
Yeah, it's really hard to tell because it's all on one meter.
I mean, we could attempt to make if the police department was, we could look what the police department was, what the difference was, how many hours a week they think they're going to be there, divided by, I mean, if the police department was there 40 hours a week, I think they're probably there longer, but just for the sake of argument, if they're there 40 hours a week and CCKCF is going to be there 10, look at what the difference in the bill is and divide it by, I mean, take 25% of it, take 10%, take 40%, whatever the ratio will be.
So I could compare that year over year to like last year to the year before and then our utilities, you know. It'd be a guess.
Maybe 20 hours at the most, so, I mean, that's what we're looking at now.
Yeah. So if we could figure the difference, if you would let me know the difference between the years, because we'll want to average all 12 months.
Yeah.
So if you would let me know the difference from a full year of them being there to a full year of them not being there.
Yeah.
And then
We can do that.
I will crunch some numbers and propose what I think an appropriate rental agreement, what an appropriate amount would be.
Okay. Sounds good. So, yeah, anything else on?
I've not heard from the Jeter firm. I did send them the executed letter of engagement. I've not heard from them since. I will, if I've not heard from them by the end of the month, I will follow up with them before our first meeting in April. I will be here for the full meeting on the 22nd of March. I have requested from my lab that I be permitted to give my report at the beginning of the 12th of April because it's the 12th of April, and then I will probably be headed back to my office.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept and file the attorney report?
I have one quick comment. As far as the contract with Sunfire, and Scott's aware of this thing, I may, in fact, have Lauren get a letter based on the concerns I have for that contract and that issue to that effect. I guess just letting the council know. I explained it in more detail later, but before you left, I wanted you to be aware of it. There's a situation on our generating where it's not addressed directly in the contract that we have. Therefore, I want it dealt with differently than they're trying to deal with it.
Okay.
And we're still working through that, but we may need to get an attorney involved, I guess, if it comes to that point.
Okay. Now to amend the motion? Gail made the motion, David seconded it. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on down to new business. Bill, you're up.
Thanks for the talk. Thanks for talking the other day. What I'm going to talk about is, I say civic and community pride a little bit. You can drive all over town, all you see is trash, trash, trash. And sometimes people have to turn a blind eye to it and not see it. Some of you remember last year at Memorial Time, I cleaned up around the graveyard in the cemetery. That's a road on going toward Wheeler. We got volunteers, we did it all the way to the landfill. I drive that road almost daily to pick up trash off of beer cans. I picked up Arby's boxes, even Kentucky Fried Chicken boxes out of that ditch. People coming in and throwing stuff out. Also, since I've got the road fairly cleaned up, all the roads starting on Lorraine Street to the landfill going south to the highway, I clean those bi-weekly as well. Well, I'm proposing a cleanup here in town along the highway on the 10th of April. And I'm asking for your help to make the community aware of it. Last year when we did the cleanup, I advertised in the paper. The only people that showed up was the Lions Club, the VFW, and 5 high school students. But with this as a community problem, I think the community needs to get involved in this to put a better foot forward. We want to get new people, new businesses in town. And what do they see when they come in town? Pull into the roadside park. You'll see trash on the ground as you come in. The front restroom, that trash can's overflowing. It wasn't even emptied this week. And that's not the first time this happened. There's trash on the ground beside it. Now, I don't know how often the restrooms are cleaned, but people whoever's cleaned it, walk right by the trash and don't even pick it up. When in the back, why isn't there a sign saying handicap bathrooms in the rear? There's not, because the front bathroom, a handicap person can't use it. A simple sign indicating that would help out a lot, present a better image forward. An example was 3 months and a lot of trash. If you remember when they started cleaning out the bushes in the roadside park, I first cleaned out that patch there just to the east of the rear restroom. There was cans, bottles, and everything else laying on the ground afterwards. I waited for a month for somebody to pick that up. Finally, I picked it up. In this case, the city's responsible for the city park. And my other concern about the city park, we've got permission to put the memorial down there in the park, and it's coming along. We've got over 2,200 names already. But I know a little bit further to the west, people propose putting in a dog run. If you think about it, if you've ever traveled with a dog, as soon as you get out, you can travel, that dog's going to go first place, lift his leg and do his duties. As you're going back to the rear section where you go to recycle or to the park, you have a long stretch there that you put in a dog run, a small dog and a large dog run. I've never seen any place where it's planned well that you put small dogs and big dogs together. It just doesn't work. The other thing is most dog parks, when you're traveling, you'll find have a water facility for your dogs to get water. Well, you have water in the back that you can easily run a line there for dog water. Now, I'm thinking it's the museum that's wanting to put in the dog run. I'm not certain who it is, but I've heard it's the museum. But when you go to the roadside park, just tomorrow, drive up there and take a look. Look, all the trash from the fence line all the way around. It only takes 5-10 minutes a day, whoever cleans the restroom, pick up that trash. You look at the ditch running behind the museum, behind the fire station, and on up. It's full of trash all the time. I'll fill 2 or 3 trash bags, trash every other week out of that ditch. And I didn't pick it up today, but I normally do, because this is the week we're cleaning it up. But that's trash going in, and this is where we as a community need to get together and clean that up. Somebody coming to town looks at that, and they say, why would I even want to stay in this town or stop if it's so trashed up? Now, our roads are in bad shape, and I understand that. I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. But if they leave the roadside park and cross over, and I know, Mandy, you're trying to get help there, that's another indication that we need to do something there to give a better impression forward. And this is what I'm asking for, is your help as city council, and I've been from the county commissioners asking for their help. I've seen places in town, I won't mention the name, but 5 months ago they threw a bag of trash down the front steps. It laid there, and I mentioned in the picture I put in the paper in December, a whole load of trash, which you saw, if you looked at that paper, you saw that load of trash in my trailer. That's every month I haul a load of trash to the landfill. and primarily off the streets of here in town and the roadside parks and stuff like that. And this is why I'm asking for your help, as Lions Club member, as a VFW member, to organize a community cleanup. Let's clean the town up and show some civic pride there. And that's all I'm asking for. I hope you thank us for the call. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
That's crazy. I mean, it's everywhere. And not even just in St. Brand, it's everywhere anymore. It's terrible.
Well, I know it is, but that doesn't mean we have to do like everybody else.
I know it, I agree.
But I've been in towns where you wouldn't find someone that's pop out there on your own. And even when other towns around are trashed out. And that's my point. We don't have to follow what everybody else is doing.
Is there still groups that, like, about the highway? Are they,
It's been mainly the VFW and the Lions Club. Now, there used to be these groups, church groups that clean so much. But if you take a drive, just access road, or say from the Angle Road, which I cleaned up last week, all the way to the turn going to landfill. Just stop, slow down, and look at the trash in the ditches. And a wheeler there where the wind's blowing heavy, with all the trash blown out in the fields. And my proposal, I'm hoping we get enough groups to break it up and go from the highway, from beginning there by Logistics, example, all the way to the turn going to landfill. Because it's in bad shape all the way through.
Bill, I'm having my first meeting with all the pastors since the new ones got in town, Thursday at 11 out of Majestic. You may want to think about coming and sharing this with all the guys as well, to see if we can get all the churches to at least get the news out.
Okay. Well, I definitely will. And what I found, just like I advertised last time, there's 1,447 mailboxes in Cheyenne County. Less than 400 take the paper. So that's you not coming to you physically, talking to you as I did the county commissioners as well. But I will be there Thursday. I say at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
I think, doing a volunteer deal is great, and I think that maybe it should happen 2 or 3 times a year.
Well, that's what we're trying to
You know, set dates and try to set them up for, say, 3 times a year, or 4 times a year, whatever it takes. But, because not everybody can always make this date, but they might be able to make the next one and so forth. But, if a guy could get into a routine there, and even just the whole town, even out to Keller Pond, the whole works.
Any road you take out of town is just trashed out. And I agree with you, if we do it more often, good thing. What's the possibilities of getting more trash cans on Main Street? Sometimes they're just overflowing. And I know a lot of times you drive down Main Street early in the morning, I know down there by the Fresh 7, a lot of times I see pizza boxes and everything else being thrown on the ground. I know you have to see it down there when you come out sometimes.
Yep,
And you see it all over.
It blows up the street, I think, from the west end. I always get trash in my ditch there.
And I know I'm taking too much of your time. I know every time I drive, I'm going to pick up beer cans and bottles between here and Wheeler. North Street, the Angle Road, they'll go down to the end of the RV park. They throw them over the bank where it's out of sight. You can fill up 2 or 3 trash bags in that 1.5 mile stretch from the end of the RV park to the highway. You go along both sides of it almost on a daily basis. There's some, it's not only beer cans, it's whiskey bottles, vodka bottles, and everything else you can think of.
JR, we're fortunate enough to have a trash can in front of my office, but one day I got there and the lid was gone. I don't know what. Instead of having to buy new trash cans, do we just get new lids for those things? Because that helps keep things in there.
Yeah, we're actually working on making those. They're ridiculously expensive. The one thing that I caution, and I completely agree, containment is the issue with people throwing stuff down instead of in containment. What we run into, like at the parks, anytime we ever have more, what we have is more people utilizing the trash service. I guess maybe not to take their piece of trash, but they're bringing a bag of trash, and you see that even with vehicles. So it's kind of you want to have the appropriate amount, but when you put too much there, then you get all kinds of extra
Well,
stuff.
you know, a camera would take care of that problem in a hurry.
We got a lot of places that can't.
Well, I understand that
Yeah.
there, but by that front restroom,
Sure.
and then one in the back, because I've seen the trash cans in the back overflowing. I know all this trash that's in the fence line comes out of those trash cans, I understand that. But if still, and I don't know how often you send people to clean the restroom, but if it takes 5 minutes to walk and pick up the trash, it's the appearance what I'm looking at. His appearance draws people. If it looks trashed out, people don't want to stop it. And for myself, or up until last year, I traveled 8-9 months out a year. If I pulled into a roadside park like this one here, I saw it trashed out, I pulled back out, going down the highway till I found a clean one, stayed. And sometimes people don't know where they are. I travel some of the same routes, so I know that. But it's just, what I'm looking at is if we want to get quality people in, or get anybody in, I know this COVID brought us in people, but some of those people are moving on down the road already. So if we want to get people, new business and people to stay, let's clean up the town and show pride. And I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay, if you're going to do one on April the 10th,
Yes, sir.
do you want us, as a city, to advertise for that?
Oh, definitely, please. You know,
And-
and talk to people.
Okay, and then what time do you want to start that?
Okay, if we could meet at about 1:30 up here by the high school parking lot. And that way, if we get enough groups and enough people with the side-by-sides, we can spread out, cover the town, and cover as much of the highway as we can.
Okay,
And I'll have a trailer behind my Jeep, and if they can bag stuff up, and I'll have boxes of trash bags like I did before. And I'll drive along and pick them up the next day or later on that day.
okay.
So is it you individually that's organizing this, or is it the Lions Club, or?
Well, let's just say it's a Lions Club and VFW. I'm spearheading it, let's just put it that way.
So if I just give you a call, we can put something on our website.
Yeah.
If I give you a call, we can talk about all the
Sure,
details that you want.
definitely.
Okay. Okay, thanks for your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, Mike or Cindy?
Well, thanks for letting me speak to you, council members. You probably noticed that I'm interested in a piece of property. I think you've all received a copy of this map. Anyway, out there, and I think it's called the old Topping Edition, I'm not sure. That's what Kelly says it's called. There's a lot out there, it's 70 by 80 that a prior entity had and put a building up out there. I guess it's a building, I don't know. I wasn't here then. There's a bunch of cement out there. We'd be interested in buying that piece of property, and we would also like to add 30 more feet to the west, which would make it 100 feet long by 80 feet wide. And that's kind of our proposal. We'd like to buy that. We've been in contact with JR, and we've kind of been out there, looked at it, where it would be and how it would sit. Anyway, like I said, we'd like to buy that, and our first improvement would be to tear that building down, haul it to the landfill, get rid of the cement. Then our next improvement, we'd like to put a 30 by 50 metal building out there and put it in the center of that lot. And we'd like to put a little bit farther to the west. That way it would give us a little more access to getting in and out of the building. And that would be our major improvement for us. And we'd probably have a water line put there to use in case we want to wash something, a vehicle to keep in there. But that's all it's going to be, basically just a garage, a metal building to keep cars in. We picked up another car or two and a boat, and that's basically our plans. Like I said, a metal building, all cement floor, cement approach, 20-foot cement approach, and like I said, I've been talking to JR, and I had no idea how you price anything. I said, I have no idea what you're doing. And GR recommended 32 cents a square foot, and I have no problem with that. I think that's, if he recommends that, that's what I was going to go by, which figured $25.60, so that'd be no problem. But that's our intentions here, and well, I guess we'll let you decide what you think, or if you got any questions.
2560, that seems high.
Yeah.
That's way
Is
high.
it?
Yeah, that's way high.
Mhm.
The 2560 is about what Riley paid for that great big area up there.
Well, I know what Riley paid.
Yeah. That's in line with what he paid.
We can go ahead and charge for an extra.
2,560.
Is that what you're, are you sure?
But 30, that's
'Cause
8,000.
originally that was 700 and some dollars by the,
Maybe I'm on math not right. Would be the first time,
8,000 times 32, 2560.
2560, yeah.
divide that by 9, it's a square yard.
Right,
That should have been
that's
a square yard is what that is.
Yeah.
I apologize. Divide your number by 9.
Oh, I just.
That should put it in
Yeah.
line, it was a square yard, it had to be.
Right, it was square yard, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever that would be, we'd be very interested to do that. And like I said, we'll keep it up, don't worry about that. We will, I don't think we have any group plants of flowers growing out there,
I think you
but,
have lowers, don't you?
oh, yeah.
Like weed eaters.
I'm sure the lot will be kept mowed, I guarantee you that, and maybe a little more extra help, I don't know. But that's our plans, and I guess if you don't have any more questions, that's all I have.
What kind of time frame do you, I mean, not trying to nail you down.
Get
but
on it?
from-
Well, just as soon as we find out, the person in charge would probably start moving a little dirt, whatever has to be done to get it so it's level to the west, and right away.
The reason I ask is, and we discussed this on all that property up there, the condition to sell is to build within a
Right.
given amount of time. And so if it's to be completed like within a 6 months or within a
Oh.
year, whatever some reasonable amount of time is, that has to be written in on these plots.
I'm hoping by summertime, I'm hoping by
Well, sure, yeah.
June.
But it's not a big issue to say
Well, I was
here,
thinking we had
oh,
it-
he's got something to tear down, something to develop. The other concern I would have is and obviously has no problem with because the price is so low on it, but it's obviously not as good or accessible to ground as the Riley ground is either. Just when I make those comments, it's not.
No, it's not.
And that road, attempting to improve that, we have attempted at different times with the Wash Road. They're aware that we're not going to do a lot of maintenance on the road other than keeping it accessible as it is. And I just want to make those comments as far as the time frame too, just so we get that written in. Because it'll have
Usually a year.
What's that?
Usually a year, I think that's
No.
what they're on the.
Yeah, exactly, what it was a year. And then if you couldn't have it done by a year, just go back and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, if it's not done in a year, the guy's not going to get paid, I don't think, I'll tell you that, for sure.
And the other comments, it's an appropriate size for the building he's talking about doing. And that was not the case previously, but there was a promise made, not kept on the previous builder, I guess we'll call it there, the building was right in there. But no, it addresses an issue that we were going to have to deal with anyway. So I think all those things should be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Everybody in agreement to go forward with it? So, yeah.
And we just mirror, I suppose, what we had on
Riley, yeah.
time frame and
Who would do that?
they like it.
What's that?
Who would do that? Would it Lauren do that?
Friday one.
And I would assume we'd have the Riley one,
Yeah.
just to qualify and make changes to it.
Just take out green bins and put it in storage.
Okay, we'll get on it right away so that you can go ahead and start making plans, so we'll get our end of it done.
Okay,
What's the
thank you.
price?
Thanks, guys.
What's the price then?
But it's 31 cents a square yard. Now, we'll make sure that's in.
Yeah, let's look that up. The 2560,
That's all I want.
the 2560 is too high.
But yeah, that was.
But if you want to pay us that, we'll take it.
So it's the same whatever we did on Riley's, is that?
Yeah, it'll be the same price as what Riley's.
That was 1.9 acres at one. It should be like $600 or $700.
Right.
Way,
That's going to be more like what it will be. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think those big units, storage units, when they first went up there, those were, I think, like maybe $1,200 for a whole lot, something like that at that time, so. Okay, Elmer.
Well, several things I'll share with you, but first thing I just wanted to clarify was the LED sign, and I come down here a week or two ago and was going to ask to put it on, and they tell me it's not kosher in the better guideline. Kansas for Life is the County Kansas for Life, where it's a 501c3, so I'm just trying to get clarification. Clear spaghetti dinner. And so we advertise it a different way, and so we want to put on the LED sign. And so I'm trying to clarify what that really means. I guess I don't consider us a political organization or an educational group, but I guess some people think we're political. I don't know. So anyway.
Yeah, we've tried to stay away from, trying to promote any retail profit or purposes or individual claims as far as religious or political. So
And this was on the spaghetti?
Beg pardon?
This was for the spaghetti dinner?
Spaghetti lunch, we've done it for 20, 30 years, yeah. And it's, well, it's educated. None of our money goes politically. It all goes to helping Hope's Place and government places like that, where our money's all spent. It's not infused politically, so I'm just trying to clarify.
So I know it doesn't, just by its definition, because we read the policy based on state rules being accessible by the state, and obviously that's a political stand. The right to life. I mean, I understand what you're saying, it's going to be spaghetti.
It's more moral,
but it's actually the Kansas for Life political action.
Well, we live in an armament, but I have to pay. My money's not tax deductible when I get that. But that's all that is. None of our group goes to any of that political stuff. It's all more educational stuff and what it is. So, anyway, you might think about that. That's a concern. Second thing, what about if we have Senator Moran or somebody, can we put up, is that political again? If we put up that he's coming to town, I got kind of amused. I was here a few months ago with Dennis Wheaton. He gave you guys a $60,000 check. Senator Billinger came over to the library, and there were four of us there. Dennis Wheaton and Beth Mayfield, my wife, and I. People didn't even know about that. But to me, I'm concerned that LED sign ought to be used as information.
I think
to
that
get
works.
people out. What's
I
that?
think that works because it's an elected official, and all you're saying is this date that person is there.
Right, so
It's not
people
taking
know
a
about it.
position. That is simply
He's a representative.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is for, is that kind of
But
thing.
even if we didn't get it, I don't know. We're not doing a good job getting information out to people a lot of times. And
So that wouldn't have come, we didn't get any notice of that. We have to have notice in order to get it on the sign.
So I don't know. I just want to clarify. So if they do, any of our political leaders come to town or are going to be here and have a town hall meeting,
If they're running, no.
I'm sorry.
If they're running or
Well,
doing
that's a
re-election, and that's the purpose of that, then no. But if they're,
once they're elected.
right, yes.
Once they're elected, it's just kind of, town hall meetings, just information.
Second thing I'd like to visit with you about is a couple. First one's our Lions Club, and Bill's already talked to you about that. Well, I went out and cleaned a little bit of my property by my 36. I went from my drive down to Bill's driveway and back up to Andy Whiteman's driveway, and I got 2 buckets of trash just doing that. So it's a real concern we have.
What's so unfortunate is the people that actually do it. People act differently than they used to in reference to that. I mean, it's just not as clean. I don't know, people just aren't as responsible themselves.
The thing is, I hate to say it, but if you see somebody doing it, turn in.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to say fine them $200 for littering, give them $200 of community service picking up trash. You'll end that problem.
Does the state still do the adopt the highway?
I think they did, well, they do it now, I remember the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
They took
Our
out,
bank
this
used
car
to go
wash
out
2
every
miles
year.
east, and it's gone now. Well, that was Warren Cycles when he left, but that, I don't know, I remember seeing the sign, it's gone.
But yeah, I didn't know if the state.
I don't, we'll have to check into that.
Because I thought it was the Methodist youth group that had,
I'm
I
sorry.
thought it was the Methodist youth group that had.
I think when Warren kind of led the way on it while he was here, but I don't know whether they quit or.
And it might have just been something that wasn't known, going through new pastors and whatnot, that wasn't.
They've abandoned it. I'll check with the highway department, see if they still have it. Maybe we can get groups that would adopt all of this and take care of it and do what Scott's talks about 2 or 3 times a year. I think they cleaned up the highways, I remember. This is our brochure from Line. We're going to celebrate our 70th year of Lionism in St. Francis in a couple months. So we want you to know about it, and we'd like to invite you to be Lions. We've got a real small group. We've got the list of our members on the back there. So it's been, when they started this club, I think there were around 50 people, teachers and business people, all kinds of people. Well, I know 3 of you heard. Your dad was a Lions member until he died, and your grandfather was, and your dad was a Lions member. I know some others of you. So we've done a lot of stuff, and it's a real struggle sometimes. We're trying to do a lot of things, and we've done something else. It might be, if you don't want to be a Lion, be a friend of Lions. We run 2 rides at the fair, and sometimes it takes a lot of manpower to do it, man and woman power to get that all done. So I want you to consider that. Consider being a Lion. Third thing is something I've been pouring about, and I think Candy Douthit did a lot of groundwork on this, and I'm concerned about people. Somebody else told me we have a high percent of people in Tryon County who are in poverty. Is that right, or is that? I don't know how to get good information. This is something this lady, she's going to be here next Tuesday night to meet the Methodist Church Fellowship Hall. They've been going at it for a year or 2 or longer on helping people out of poverty. And so she's going to come out, Julia Chahoy, and talk about this. And I don't know how, if anything can be done, And I don't know, we'd have a lot of people in poverty. I don't know. They are, I don't know who they are. But they tell me there's a lot of people in poverty here right in Cheyenne County. Is that true?
I don't know how I would find that out.
I know, everybody, we really don't know, but there is. I mean, there is.
There is. I know from the last year and a half I've been Salvation Army representing. You'd be surprised the amount of people. I won't mention any names, but I've helped out last year and a half. And unfortunately, with the COVID, our donations were down quite a bit this year. But I should have, I'll know in the morning, around $400 a month for the rest of the year. I've been at 200 since first of the year, but they got all the money computed now. And I had a message as I was leaving my house to give them a call tomorrow, be 400 to 450 to help people, which is not as much as I had in the past, but at least we can help some people out.
We want to invite you all to come and hear what she has to say, because they've done some work. I think they're in phase 2 or 2, I think it is, where they've got people who really want to get out of poverty, and they're working with them. And I know you've got some, Pastor Butler, as I understand, on Dave Ramsey, part of his money management, and that's something else I think we need to look at too, is helping people. Part of it's management. A lot of money management is part of our problem. All of us have some of that. And so I don't know how we work all this together to do that. So, is there any questions? Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Elmer.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on there is the trash waiver applications.
So before we go over the ones that, I've only got 2 out there right now to approve. And I kind of mentioned this to Scott earlier. The applications that we have now, if you look at them, there's a section in the middle when Mike drew this up that requires that the signatures be notarized. I really don't know why that's a requirement. I don't know why signatures. And what has happened this year is everybody's turning them in, but they haven't been notarized. I've got 2 for you to approve.
Including mine.
Yeah, including NJR's. So I didn't bring any of those tonight. I just brought these 2 that did have them notarized for your approval tonight. But I would like to ask the council if you would consider removing me removing that section out of the application.
There's no reason to have a notary on, it's not a,
That's what I said.
none of our other applications for anything, permits, building applications, none of those have notaries. It's not a document that you need.
That's just to prove who you are.
Yeah.
Well, we already know pretty well who all of our customers are.
Take it out.
Take it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody agree with that? Let's
If
take
you
it
don't
off.
know them, you can ask for a driver's license just to verify that they are who they are. But most of them, you're going to know
Yeah.
who they are. I mean, it's,
And it's usually somebody that's been here for a while, and then they realize they don't need that trash service. Because that's the only thing you can take off. You can't take off your water and sewer.
Yeah, this is strictly for trash and it's for limited reasons.
Right. And so it's just going to be a handful of people that do that, and so.
I'll bring the rest. Yes.
Can we back the truck up real quick to the LED sign?
Yep.
We'll revisit that real quickly. Is that a state statute on what is and what isn't allowed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think it would behoove us to make sure we're educating people on that fact, because I didn't know, and I asked you, we didn't know before the meeting. And
I'd forgotten about what.
then what's happening is people are blaming it on the fact that we're making that decision unilaterally around this table, and that's probably not wise for us, because there is 7 or 8 people right now collecting funds to put one on Main Street, and to kind of stick it in their eye. And so I think if we just went and said, this is something that is not just us, but it's a state regulated, I think that would behoove us to do that.
And a lot of the reason that is up there on the highway where that's at is a safety deal. They don't want people just sitting up there on the highway trying to read it as it's going across. And I saw an 80-year-old lady stopped in the middle of the highway watching it one day.
Every week he does it. He told me the other day, I pull over. You can't do that. I pull over. Every week he does it.
I mean, if they pull up by the highway,
pull off the highway.
if they pull off the highway and look at it, that's fine. But this gal stopped in the highway, on the highway, and that's what she was doing. She was looking at the, because, as that's going across there, you might be able to read one, maybe 2 things, and that's all you're going to read. And that's one of the things the state said. We can't have a bunch of advertising up there for things because people are going to be trying to read it all the time.
And that makes sense.
And their actual policy is a little more strict than even how we operate it. So you got to be a little careful about bringing that out because animation, flash, color, there's a whole bunch of things that are written into it. However, they're decent about it, and so suggest we write our own policy. Otherwise, we can't hardly do anything with it. We found that all out after it was put up. So it's better to just stick to our policy specifically. Yes, it's forced by the state, but to incorporate that, we would all but have to turn it off. You get into town, totally different deal. Some are privately owned, on a bank, on a business. Anything other than offensive material is fair game. Highway, it's regulated.
Yeah, we
And
try to
actually
follow
overly
no
regulated up there.
political or,
Sure.
yeah.
Which I think is a good
Which a business
choice.
or
And I think that part of it, we actually, no, that's in there. It actually is on that.
Because there's things we want to put up, that
Mhm.
you support, for town, something going on, even religious, and they're like, no, sorry, we're just.
But I can think it would
Staying away
behoove us to make sure that we do a better job of letting people know that's not just a council decision. That's state. Yeah.
Okay, do we want to go ahead and approve these 2 then? So there's the one for Cody Crine and one for Carla Lampy on trash pickup. Do I hear a motion to approve These two. It's been moved by Amanda, second by Cal. All in favor? Approved. Okay, old business, property cleanup.
I don't have anything new. We have the date on flyers for Wednesday that she mentioned. That's all we've got moving.
Okay, project pending. Anything there that? Did you talk to Greg Kite before his dad died?
Yes. Oh, did I before?
No, well, John died about 10 days ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. It would have been before that, not long before.
So,
Okay.
we tried to call him when his dad died, but he never answered, so I don't know. There's friction there, so. Okay. Street project? Do you have anything on that?
All we have is the permit to divert stormwater while doing work. It's a KDHE permit. It was just sent back. It's something we had to sign and apply for a contractor to temporarily divert stormwater. Other than that, no.
Pretty much on track.
Yes. We are going to probably modify the south end of Parkway. What we found through this extremely cold weather is that we have some water lines that are about 2 feet from the surface. So either we're going to have to lower a water line or raise the street a little bit. The main itself did not freeze, but the taps did, just being that much smaller in diameter. We ended up actually running water taps over the ground to maintain water service for a week, and I don't know, it was quite a while before they thawed out. So other than that modification, everything should be.
How do we raise this street? We almost have to.
What we can do is take less of an inverted crown at that point, because it's clear on that end. We can basically run it flat. As long as the trickle water goes down the center and not to the seam of the gutter and the asphalt, we're okay. Part of this project is to put concrete in the center. Part of it, if it was just flat, except for maybe, I think it's 6 feet wide, might be 8 feet wide. If we only had a 1-inch drop in the center and tapered on down as more water comes in, I think we could gain 6 inches. I mean, it's not a lot, but yeah. The other thing was it was an 80-year event. They've never done that. There was water even being run. The problem is it gets warm outside, quit dripping the water.
Yeah.
The warm outside
Draws it down.
Just pushes it down. So anyway, in reference to the street project, there may be a minor modification there.
Okay, we'll move on. Theater report. Anything?
There was a meeting tonight, so I went to part of it. I guess they were talking about, we're talking about cold. They were saying, with the new electric hand washers and stuff, they can't turn the faucets on to let them run, when it's cold out, to let them drip. So they cranked up the heat a little bit and opened the doors and didn't have a problem, but they said they were trying everything they could to think of to alleviate that. They got the heater out in the concessions area. It was going, and so. But, and then there was one of the, I don't know, I have to have somebody look at it while we were there, the men's bathroom. It was making a strange noise in there. I don't know if it's with the electric flusher or what, but it was, it just continually kept making a noise. Let's see, they've got like the last 2 months, they've done pretty good with their movies, still plugging away at it. The grant that was submitted, that Lila submitted through the foundation for the Hanson Funds, 4,000 of it was, there was more grant applications and funds that were still available from this quarter. So 4,000 of the 10,000 that we asked for was granted, and then in April we get the next round of funds, and so we're looking at, it would have to be resubmitted, and I don't know, they talk to you about it, Carla or anybody?
Only that evening when you guys told me that, but I haven't
Okay.
gotten a letter or anything
Okay.
to make it official.
The Greater Northwest Kansas was, talked like they were going to reach out, like today or something, I don't know. I guess we'll keep you updated. Yes, the next round, they're hoping to get that funds, and then you guys can go ahead and get the submission for the engineer that should hopefully happen.
And I didn't get an answer back, but it would seem to me, as long as we don't have to prepay the full amount, and that we have the assurance from the foundation that it will be funded in the next round, that we could go ahead with it. The issue with the foundation is we can't go pay the amount and then be reimbursed for it, is my understanding how the foundation typically works. You can't spend the money and then ask to get it. I'm pretty sure we can pay as we go. I'm almost sure they'll work with us. The city had said they would put up 13.2 and hoping from 10 from the foundation. As long as they don't require full payment up front, I don't see any reason we wouldn't go ahead with that assurance from the foundation.
Will the foundation have any concerns with that?
Everybody was on board. I mean, like I say, everyone was wanting to fund it, but
Right.
we had X amount of dollars left, and
My
all these
understanding is as long as you
applications.
don't spend the money and then go ask for it, in other words, as long as we're not billed for $6,000 of this prior to that being funded, we would be okay.
Talk
That's
to
my
Carla,
understanding.
verify
Okay.
that, and then,
Okay.
that should,
But does the council see any reason to wait for another cycle to give them the go-ahead if that is the case?
no.
Probably not.
I don't. I mean, with the assurance of the local foundation
Right.
that they're going to fund it, it seems to me there's only one question to be answered, and it's whether.
Yeah, okay.
And they don't typically ask for the entire fee up front. It's usually just either a small
Right.
amount when you pay upon completion or quarterly or something like that. So I'm
Yeah.
just sure it's workable. So basically all we're hinging on is the
Well, somebody can make a quick call to Carla, just kind of confirm it, and then we'll go forward with it then.
Would I just submit the exact same
Yeah,
application
she
with the
asked like
same numbers
copy
and
and paste,
everything?
and, yeah, so.
And just reduce
like
the
I said,
amount that I'm
verify that with
asking
her,
for?
and, you know, she needs to talk to Carol or somebody over at Greater Northwest, then we can,
Okay.
When is that next round? When would that be applied?
it's in April, and
Okay.
we meet on the 1st, but I don't know if the funds will be there until later, and if it would be
Right.
funded.
And that's what I was thinking when I was talking to Tom about that, it was like, why would we wait if we have the assurance that as long as we're clear on that? Anyway, I'll check with Carla as far
Okay.
as that's concerned. So we can hopefully get moving forward.
But yeah, everybody was on board with it. That was just kind of the topic at the meeting, was
Okay. Did I get a motion to?
getting going.
Yeah. To accept and file the theater report. Moved by Amanda, second by Larry, all in favor? Approve pool report.
We're having a full board meeting tomorrow night to start diving into the season and see what we have for applicants and look at rates and different ideas for private parties and everything. Private parties are going to go way up this year, and we'll address admission rates and kind of see where we're sitting as far as hopefully we can do swimming lessons this year, which will generate more income. I'll know more after tomorrow night, I hope.
And is Kelly coming back for sure?
Can't say anything yet.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept and file the pool report? Moved by Cale, second by David, all in favor? Building permits?
Seems like I should have some, but I don't.
Okay. Superintendent report.
Okay. So the electrical event, I think Amanda probably mentioned there was going to be a bit of an issue with that. It's obvious in every direction that there's an issue for everybody. It's more a matter of how much do we get hit compared to others. So basically what happened in reference to the generating that we was forced to do by SPP, On February 15th, they called and did a force generate. We're emergency only. Typically, the lights go out the only time we do. Sunflower called, reminded them we was emergency. They said they're calling on all generation. I just simply said we need to hear from someone else just because the lights weren't going out. Shortly thereafter, SPP out of Arkansas called the level 3 emergency to put on as much generation as we could safely do and generate until they said to stop. That was on February 15th. We generated through 24 hours, kind of come up resources short to be able to do that. Contacted Sunflower to find out what hours were the most critical to generate, which was 6 a.m. to 11 a.m., 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We generated those times straight through on February 16th or 17th. On the 18th, they contacted us and said we could go ahead and stop generating. We burned 4,628 gallons of diesel and produced 41.65 megawatt hours of energy over a 39-hour generating period. During that time, what we generated was we just put the big Nordberg on and we maintained on the tie with a 10% of the power coming from Sunflower. The reason for that was they may go out because they were strained and they were doing rolling blackouts to conserve energy. So the generator would pick that amount up, and vice versa. If our generator was to fail, there would be a slight brownout and it would pick up. So that's what we generated. We did not go off the tie. We don't have the capability to do more because we're old. We're emergency. We only do our load. In the aftermath of this thing, going over the contract with Sunflower, they interpret it as if they will pay us diesel and man hours, and we will pay the market energy price for those times we generated. It's not specifically that way in the contract. That's why I referred to the possibility of having Lauren put something out. The month of February will be 6 times its normal rate. Normally we would pay $40,000, it's $240,000 for a 10-day period. Over that 10-day period, it was $700 a megawatt hour. To put that in perspective, we normally pay roughly $51 a megawatt hour. And it did that for a 10-day period on the market energy. Obviously, I don't agree with that interpretation. It's not specifically in there. We generated our specific load based on a forced generation. I'm just not thinking we're going to get in on those 41 megawatt hours at just our diesel cost. We are going to be charged. I've asked for the actual market energy at that time, and I'm getting resistance. They're trying to figure out how to do this too. During that period of time, there was hours that were $3,700 a megawatt hour. And we know we generated during those times because we generated at those peaks. So I'm trying to put it in perspective of we generated for ourselves, knowing more or less just taking ourselves off the grid to help conserve energy, and now the attempt is to only give us diesel and we get charged for the kilowatts we produce. I mean, it's insane. It makes no sense. Contractually, if we had accredited generation, it's right in the contract. It specifically says they pay diesel and cost to operate. They own that generation because they paid for it. They don't pay for our generation. It's emergency. We were forced to generate. We generated our own load. So that's the thing we're going through with Sunflower right now. There's only 2 towns that are in this situation where we have emergency generation. Everybody else, they're just out. Their contract says it. Goodland's, I think, normal bill was $250,000 for the month, and they're $1.5 million.
It's crazy.
And we're like the least hard-hit area because we have this better contract that has the hedge of Sunflower. Believe it or not, we're the lucky ones. No, we're not the lucky ones. We picked the right contract. KMEA, some of the people who went with the very contract that we was looking at are 15 times their normal monthly average in a 10-day period. They also have gas companies in some of these towns. I mean, they literally are wiped out by a 10-day event.
So what do they do?
The governor has put out there low-interest loans for cities to be able to put this out over a 3-year period for 10 days.
Actually, I think it's up to 10 years. That they can-
Yeah,
they can make it
they
10
were
years to
quite
pay.
nailing that down. I'm thinking the Prairie Land version of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you put that in perspective, these other places and where they're at, our hit is hard. We have some things delayed billing by a month, so we can work through this. We won't see it till next month. Kirk Gerard with Prairie Land has offered, and they're doing this to everybody, financing to get it done, up to a 3-year period. I guess what happens if you have another event in the 3-year period? It just seems weird. You're literally talking about $6,000 additionally a month over a 3-year period to pay for the thing. I don't think it makes any sense to pay interest on something that we can pay. It's a huge hit. It is an 80-year event. This is not something that's going to, it could. It's no different than a 100-year rain. It could happen again. But I don't think financing it through the state or Prairie Land is the right answer for the city. I think it's a risk you take. Market Energy, when they deregulated it, was great. Everything's low. This is the downside. This is what can happen. It wasn't our area that did it. It was Texas. It was the huge area of SPP that was hit that did it. It wasn't specific to here. Our own systems weren't even strained. The gas system was, but it was not. Sunflower is going to Goodland and Oberlin to present to them directly what the situation is, the specifics of the grid system, what happened. Basically, the markets followed the demand. It got to a point where they were at 100%. They did rolling blackouts, and when everybody wants the same thing, the price goes up. It's just it's open market, but that's why it's low when it's low as well. Basically, this 10-day period would put us paying a little bit less than what we did in the old contract just the year before. Kind of a bad deal. We just went over how much we were saving, and this happens. But that's it, kind of in a nutshell. I mean, I've been on the phone with Sunflower and Prairie Land repeatedly and following along. I've offered to go to board meetings with Prairie Land and Sunflower for the city's position. So these 41 megawatt hours are not relevant. You know, if we give them our diesel and our man hours, it's probably $60 a megawatt hour. It's like $2,500. If you put that in perspective of the market energy, it's a totally different thing. And I'm not saying they'll pay that. I just want us to keep our diesel money and subtract those megawatt hours, even if it's an average, even if it's not the specific hour. Take that $700 a megawatt hour, and it's $28,000. At least you're being paid for the work you did and the wear and tear on the engines. I guess I shouldn't put that number out there because we're still working on this, but this is public dollars. We generated our load. We carried ourselves through an emergency. And we still have to pay for what we produce. It's mind-blowing to me that it's even proposed that way.
Yeah, and from what, as best as I can wrap my mind around this, I guess if we have it, I'm kind of agree with you. I'd rather pay it than pay interest on something down the road. But having said that, does paying it leave us vulnerable in any other ways?
No. Okay. And the reason being is we did see the savings in the contract. We have our sales tax. I mean, I don't want to say we're sitting pretty and this is no big deal. It's huge. I mean, it's really a bad thing. But I think that's why we have a cash reserve.
Right.
I think this is exactly what it is for. I think in the event something else would happen again, there's no doubt in my mind there's going to be state funding where you could spread it out over a period of time. I just don't think we set on cash reserve that's for an emergency, that's what this was, and pay interest out over an extended period of time.
When do you think they'll let us know?
As far as what we're...
Final numbers.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
it's one, I'm talking to Kirk Gerard one time at Prairieland, and then Erica Valeriel or Corey Linville at Sunflower, just kind of going round and round. They want my generating information, I want their market information. We're just playing around, I guess, a little bit. And I've made it clear, I'm not trying to be contentious. I said my council and my public will understand that we ask every question before we pay a bill that I don't think we owe. Not to that extent. Even if I'm right, and even in its best case scenario, and the best case scenario is completely out of the picture of the $3,700 a megawatt hour. It only gets into real money once you get up over $1,000 a megawatt hour. Then you get into $40,000. I don't know that we even are owed that. I don't know. I just know that we don't want their diesel money. We don't want the $65 and pay that $700 average through that 10-day period. It's not correct. We were not on the grid, at least not entirely. So, I can't say how glad I am we are with Sunflower, even though we're having a little bit of an issue with how we're dealing with this, based on those contracts off to the east. KMEA was actually referred to in the governor's call a couple of times. Nonprofit entity. No generation to hedge. They were open to the market 100%. Anybody who got the, remember those really low rates where if you went with that market energy, you could get all the way down here, but there's no guarantees? There was, Garden City was one who went with that. They're way off the chart, that big city. I mean, bankruptcy is literally the issue for some cities over this thing.
I guess I don't understand how we're tied into this contract where even though it was an emergency event, if you're not pulling power, why are we getting charged for it? Is that part of the contract?
No. It is if you're accredited generation, and I can specifically show you what they're going by, but it doesn't include us. This contract that we signed with them does not refer to emergency generation because it's ours. It's ours for our use when the lights go out. They have no say in it. I told them no. And then SPP called and forced us to generate whatever we could. So I generated our load. It's not, emergency generation is not even mentioned in our contract because it's not supposed to be relevant. We are not going to just pay as if we're accredited generation, just like Goodland's going to. Goodland, they're contractually obligated to call right obligations. We are not. We can't go generate because we want to peak shade, but when we're forced to generate, we should get that benefit of doing it at the times when it was the highest. So that's what we're going around.
I cannot wrap my head around how, if we didn't use the service, how we're having to pay for it.
Because they called, they're treating us as if we was accredited. If we was paid every month for our capacity, like Goodland is, they own that capacity. Exactly. And it doesn't specify emergency, so they're saying that's what we can do. And I'm saying that it's not. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go with that. And it's because it's not specified. We were forced to generate. When I talked to Erica today with Sunflower, she seemed a little surprised when I was bringing up the point that we were forced to generate. It's like, well, we wouldn't have generated otherwise. We weren't part of the blackouts. But we was supporting the blackouts being less by basically being out of the system. You can't wrap your mind around it because it's not right. That's what, that's the bottom line of it.
Well, then I guess the real concern I've got then is, why would we pay the money until we could get to the bottom of it?
Right.
Or are we bound, are we going to get in trouble if we don't pay it?
So we're delaying by a month because we are working through this. They could have given us the bill this month, said, and they're allowing this to take place for people to line up their financing. It's a different scenario for us because I don't think we owe the bill, not to that amount. And again, it's not going to drop to a third of what it is, but we need to get everything we can for what we did.
we cannot not pay a bill that we know is due, but where he's negotiating it, we can delay payment on it. But like the utility bills that we have to pay those bills.
Sure.
There's-
And Simpler and Fairlane have been adamant about getting our diesel cost and our labor costs, and I've been adamant about asking them for the market energy pricing, and they know what I'm doing, and I'm not even trying to be coy about it. You want information, I want information. I told Erica today, I will give you our generating information, but that has nothing to do with accepting your interpretation of this contract. If I disagree with it, I don't think we owe this portion, certainly not in the entirety that is being proposed by Sunflower. It's not addressed.
I don't
Because
know,
it's
they can't
not
see that
theirs.
we've got 40 hours of generation, so that shouldn't count.
So,
So you can't turn around and, maybe it's a dumb question, but you can't turn around and bill them for the generating time?
we can play games with it, but literally, we did, and Scott and I actually talked about that very thing. We'll turn around and charge them $3,000 a megawatt hour. We can't come up with enough labor. I mean, we'd have to employ 100 people at the engine to actually do that. If we had lost an engine, and I hadn't even thought about this till we was just talking about this. If we lost an engine and we were being forced to generate not by our own, I think that's ours. Nobody else has any right to make us run that unless the lights are out and the tie is off. It makes me
Well, play
wonder.
that
I
scenario
didn't
out,
even
so-
think about that till we was just talking about that.
So if we play that scenario out and that happened, would we get stuck with that?
That's
An
my
engine that's
question. I
lost?
mean, all of a sudden, we were forced to generate our stuff, and the lights had they never went out. It never did happen. And they forced us to, when they called, they said, you will generate. This is an emergency level 3. You are required to comply. You will generate the maximum that you can until we say not to. And in preservation of our plant, I generated what we are. So, it's not over.
Yeah, we got to keep fighting for it.
Yeah. Definitely need to fight on this one.
So then here's the next question. How's this going to affect all the residents of St. Francis?
So we have no mechanism to do an ECA, an energy cost adjustment. Basically, it's affecting them at the city reserve of the city at this point. I think the conversation has to be had based on this 80-year event for us to have a mechanism that says once it hits a given threshold that we have the ability to pass that on to the consumer. And Goodland does it. Most do it. I've always resisted it just because sooner mitigate your risk, have your electrical bill. How devastating is this to those people who do have to pay it out of their pocket? But they pay taxes, utility rates for a city to hold a cash reserve for emergencies too. Where do you find the balance? Personally, I think it's at a significant increase over average. And I'm just spitballing, but say it's 30% more than what it should be or higher. At that point, you could have a mechanism where you could pass along that price like the others do. I don't like the ones that do a monthly ECA. They base that on the cost of the month. I think that's complicated in billing. I think it's unnecessary. I think you can average things better than that. Your consumer, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, but it's for us to manage the power supply that they receive. And I think there's just some risk, and that's why you have cash reserve. If we operated on nothing but payments to large loans and that sort of thing, we wouldn't have a choice but to do real-time ECA billing.
I don't know if you guys have had anybody ask that question, but I've had a couple people ask me, how's it going to affect us?
I think the next time, I think there will be a policy where we have to have that in place. I don't think you can have an event like this and say, we could do this again and again and again. I think you have to have a mechanism in place to do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but we need the ability to. Now, we don't have, in my opinion, to the people of St. Francis, with a cash reserve that we've collected from them, I don't think we have a leg to stand on to raise their utility bill for this time period. We've held their money, used their money, pay the bill, and going forward, if we want to do an ECA, we do that.
Well, like we said in our last meeting, I have a friend in Dallas who has a $3,900 bill. $3,900.
I'd heard on the news, one guy had a $17,000 bill.
But those are interesting. They have a complete open market in Texas. Literally, they have electrical service. You may have heard this. Been digging into it a little bit, the Sunfire, some of these others, but they have service down there where you can buy your power through the whatever the area's power lines is to your home as your own contract. And there's companies out there that run free electricity all day as long as you use a certain amount at night. What they're doing is they're load balancing by doing that. But these companies go to such extremes to carve out a reason for people to use it that when something like this happens and they have free electricity in the day, just to be able to use it at night at a reasonable or higher amount, well, the door's wide open. Those are your $17,000 bills. They are 100% market exposed. I didn't mention this earlier, not in detail. In working through this with Sunflower, the huge thing that they have, and I didn't know this at the time. I don't want to claim that I knew this at the time, but remember when we was talking about that with KMEA and Sunflower? It just don't seem right. They don't have power lines, KMEA. They don't have power lines. They don't have power plants. How can they just sell through lines through paper contracts? It doesn't seem right. They have nothing they can hedge. They have nothing they can borrow against now that they owe these bills. I mean, literally, this is that twingy feeling of, how can you do just paper contracts and do that? Well, they might have been able to do it for the next 25 years, but this event, in one fell swoop, exposed the weakness in not having hedgeable assets. And when I say hedgeable, that's real time. In other words, they could run their power plant to produce some of those high-end kilowatts, offset some of the cost, and they can borrow against those assets. KMEA, they have their hand out at the state. They're looking for a bridge to get the bill paid to SPP because they have no other means. So we went the right direction is the bottom line. Even as bad as it is, it could be so much worse if we'd have chased that other penny or, it was the right decision, I guess, is my opinion. And Sunflower is waving this flag pretty high to anybody who has those contracts signed with Sunflower or with KMEA. So, is there any other questions on it? It's complicated. It's ongoing.
Keep fighting.
Yeah, keep fighting.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. I guess I mentioned it just briefly, but the governor's call, Lila and I both sat in on that and listened to some of these extremes, be it KMEA, people with the higher risk contracts and gas. Some of these people actually have gas companies in them too. They are offering that financing, and that is open to the city for application, but it just, to me, it makes zero sense. In fact, I don't think the city should be interested in Prairie Land's offering of it. They will do it in full or in part or whatever, Prairie Land, Sunflower. But was there anything else in that governor's call that you thought was relevant? I mean, they're in an emergency setting for people who literally have no way to pay their bills. That's what they're doing at the state level.
I was in a call with the league on Friday, and they had, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but the bill got pushed through very, very fast for this. And there are communities in Kansas that are facing bankruptcy because of this, especially the ones that have, like JR said, both the electric and the gas. And what they asked is that municipalities not apply for this assistance unless you absolutely have no other way to pay for it, because there are so many communities that need it.
The dollars are just astronomical by the time you start talking 15 times, and how many towns are that way.
Yeah.
You can hear the desperation in the call.
Oh, my goodness.
It was as weird, as bad as our situation was, it was comforting to listen to just, we're okay, it's bad. But my goodness, some of those cities, they just pull the plug out.
If you guys are interested, I can send you the link to the league conference call. It'll be up until Wednesday if you wanted to watch it. It's like 20 minutes worth of, I'll send that to you.
Okay, that's pretty much everything on the electric. The gas was unbeknownst to even the gas company, that was a secondary benefit of generating. Our engines will do dual fuel, but we didn't do that. We did just diesel. One, it'll produce a little bit more. Two, this engine doesn't like running on natural gas, and there's a shortage of gas. It was kind of funny. Midwest had looked at their meter and was thinking we was at a high demand. Well, we only use natural gas if we're heating the plant, as in the engine heats it when it's running. So we actually subtracted on our gas use whenever we was generating. Still would much rather take the high-end gas just because of the wear and tear and its emergency. This is our lights on, not our money maker. It used to be, but it's just not operated that way anymore. So the way we operated that was beneficial to the city. We still got some giant bills. I did get a letter from Secure Energy Consulting. It's a company that we have, and I know they changed their name, but it's Jeff Younger. And from the time I've been here, we used to hedge gas. Along about midsummer, late summer, we would hedge gas, and we'd lock in 30% of our gas or 50% of our gas because it's wintertime and prices go up. Then fracking came into play, and gas prices just went to the ground, and so we stopped securing that. Exact same thing that happens with the electric. The market gas is so low, why would you lock anything in? All you're doing is guaranteeing a higher price at that rate. So we haven't locked in gas for years. But after you do that for a while and you see one of these things, then it kind of brings back to light, oh yeah, we used to contract gas. So here's a letter from that company, basically just describing what happened in the gas market. Don't have to read it now, discuss it now. Lila's got the actual numbers on our bills compared to what we normally pay and what we are paying. But this is just simply, I guess, the explanation. Because the SEC ones were the higher ones, right? Because that was where we was buying just market, and then Midwest was kind of the same thing. It's a paper contractor that pays for gas to be transported, doesn't own a gas company themselves. Midwest has nuts and bolts and stuff, so there was some protection on the direct Midwest bills, but not through this. And again, I'm going to go back to this marketing company. I think this is going to change the way everybody looks at everything. I don't think the city's in a bad position on either one of them, but I do think it opens the door to remember going back to, well, we used to hedge gas. Maybe that's something we should consider, in the event there's predictable issues. The chances are with natural gas prices, which have now stabilized, electricity's done the same thing, it's business as usual. The event is over. That was one of the questions that I've asked and repeatedly asked is, now that all this awareness is here, is everything going to go to a different level and hang there? It's not believed it is. The failure of all the wind energy, the generation that didn't work, and the extraordinary event drove market prices. Once all those things were gone, here he is, everything is stabilized. I hope that's true. I mean, because awareness draws investors, draws money, and anyway, hopefully we don't have any Enron situations where it's manipulated. But no, it's expected to stabilize. So that's a decent explanation of what happened in the gas market. The power plant did, actually, I have to say, for such an extreme event especially, it performed very well. Had the lights gone out, nobody would have ever known it on either side, the way we was operating. It did its thing. The boiler actually did maintain and didn't leak throughout that. However, those boilers are supposed to last 15 years, and that one's been there 40. And I now have the boiler quote. If you'll remember back a long time ago in May, we had a boiler breakdown, and then we had an extended outage where we was doing rolling blackouts in St. Francis. This boiler will keep that from happening again because we would be able to keep that the water warm. If you can't keep it warm, we did get the 10-cylinder start at that time, which was kind of a miracle. It's a big price tag. It's about half of what the first one was, but I wanted to get a boiler that is efficient, but yet we all know the power plant has a lifespan, and it's 3 years, 20 years, I don't know. I don't know until we would have another engine failure, internal failure. Whatever the case, I wanted to go with a cheaper boiler. We don't need a Cadillac. I don't think there's 35, 40 years in. The first quote we had was for a 90,000 dual, double won't ever fail boiler. It's not what we have. It's not what we needed. What we did need is just the basic boiler, a little bit less efficient, but we'll keep the water warm so the engines are startable when they need to be. And the price from this is who we deal with our existing boiler, always have. The price to fully remove and install the new boiler at the same price is $57,911. And whether we decide to do that at this meeting when we're talking about paying big bills or not, it's not relevant to me, but it needs to be on the table, and we need to remember what happened when our boiler did fail. It continues to need these tubes changed out. We did some fall, I think it was the last time we did some. There's a stack of these tubes that sits outside of that boiler area. The bottom frame of this old boiler, it's amazing, it still runs. So it's a high priority, but it's a lot of money, and we've got a lot of money on other things. But this needs to stay in complete focus. I don't know that while we're negotiating through the bill is the right time to spend that kind of money, but it has to be spent. We have to have that running. So whether we want to, it's probably best to wait and figure out this billing. It's not going to make a difference between now and then. I'd be a little reluctant after that last talk to say, here, let's just spend $57,000, but there's no doubt in my mind we need to do this thing. So,
How long would it take to get that installed once we say yes?
And just gives price good for 30 days. That I don't know. I will say this, summertime we're coming into a time when it's not an issue.
Right. I'm just thinking we better get it in before next winter.
Yes. And why don't I just ask that question? You know, if we commit to this thing, what would be a proposed completion date on it? Because that's a lot. I mean, they have to take that building roof off and remove the old and replumb.
And what you said the expected lifespan for that one would be?
They say 15 years, but like I said, that one is 40. Same thing happened with our boiler at the old pool. They're supposed to last about 15, and that one was 30. Anyway, they'll run a lot longer, but the reliability goes down. Obviously,
we probably want it in by, what, September?
What's that?
We probably want that boiler in by September, right?
Yeah. I would say November. Honestly, you know, it's kind of weird, but on a normal year, as normal as it has been, I don't know what is normal anymore, but yeah. No, I think it'd be good to look at it in, you know, early fall, late fall, you know, but yes. September, October, that's probably a better mark to look for. But yeah, let's keep it on the agenda. I'll find
Do
out
we
about
put it on the projects pending things?
That's fine. That's fine. And this is something that, you know, obviously we've discussed for a couple of years since that event. It's probably been. Because we did a pretty good work over on that boiler after that, and then found out that the frame and everything is quite good. So we do spend money keeping that. Okay. Through all the cold weather, obviously, everybody knows what cold weather does, freezes things up. The problem is a tremendous amount of people don't recognize that frost goes down when it warms up. People stop dripping water too early. It was an extraordinary event. We froze up things that we'd never seen. Meters that were insulated, taps that were from the house to there, and in 3 instances from our main to theirs, which put us in a desperate mode. I was out at that time due to being quarantined, and we kind of had a desperate situation where it was our fault they didn't have water instead of on their side of the meter, and we worked a lot of hours through, dug up the street, and like I said, ended up putting over street water lines to get them to these people. We are obligated when it's our system.
We were fortunate we weren't involved with that, but kudos to everybody that helped out to take care of that, because that was a nightmare. for these guys.
It just wouldn't end. We was trying welders, we was looking for resources, trying to get it thought out, and we finally, I said, put lines over. Do what? What's the answer? I said, run them over the ground. And we'd take the meters out and tell them to run their water. They're not gonna pay for it. I mean, they've been without water for 2.5, 3 days. What's that?
How many were there?
Two.
Two?
Right next to each other. Yep. And that's where we'll change that street up a little bit. Awareness is a big issue with that, which we haven't had an event like that since I've been here. Not where you had an extended period and then it got really cold.
Yeah.
Well, what's weird is it never happens when it's really cold. It's when it starts coming back up. That frost does weird things. So, I know I've discussed this at different times. Bucket truck. We know we've got to get a bucket truck. I've talked about it quite a bit. Under these situations with our bill, boiler, I think I want to keep it in discussion and get ironed out. If we can, we've got to get that equipment. We still have to keep moving forward and operating and replacing what we need. However, it's kind of difficult to say, just business as usual. But looking at these high dollar items, just want to bring that up.
Which bucket truck?
What's that?
The one Dan's always using?
Yeah, that small one. Reliability. Just getting older. The big one is fine. It's too big. We never should have had it, but we can't afford to sell it. It's actually reliable and good. So, last thing I had was those springy horses. Are those in? Do we have
Yeah,
them?
somebody came and picked them up.
That's what I thought. I just wrote that down here a second ago because I forgot to ask so we can install those.
Yep.
Okay. All right, sounds good. That's all I have. Realize I haven't been here for quite a while, so if there's any questions on any other items or something I should have covered that I didn't, please say so.
Well, just thinking about this cold weather, just put any extra stress or issues on the pool?
Shouldn't.
Okay.
Properly winterized, there shouldn't be
Yeah.
water in any places. It will show up. And of course, we always do go early
Sure.
when you can, but no, shouldn't be any issues.
I guess I can bring this up now instead of later. The recycle center is up there today. I feel sorry for John.
Yeah.
It's a total mess. People are not taking care of it, and I don't know what we need to do. I think shut it down. I mean, I really don't want to shut it down, but just shut it down for a week and let people think about it for a little bit and say, if you're going to keep bringing it up there and making a mess like this, especially over the weekends, we're going to, he was going to run ragged today. He didn't know what to do with it or such a mess.
We had 3 people up there.
Yeah, they was coming up later to help him out, and wow.
Yeah, and it's Billy, not John.
Oh, Billy.
Yeah, anyway. On that subject, don't mean to sidetrack, because yes, it keeps getting worse too. I think we need to. I think we'll just put cameras up there and put a recording system on it.
I think we have to.
And I just don't see a choice. It's, I mentioned that when Bill was here. It's pathetic. It's a service that people get used to abusing it, be it the trash service for the city or just throwing it out and just not giving a damn. It happens, and I mean, you pick that up, and we've always said we've got to keep the recycle picked up, or people, the less respect it gets, the less kept up it is. But at some point, you can't keep up.
Well, and over the weekends, the worst, because people will go in here, and they will not sort nothing. They just throw it. Yeah. And throwing it in the wrong bins and stuff, because they know nobody's going to be around there to see them doing it.
So I'll get the equipment ordered, the camera system, the bridge to get it there so we have a live feed, and we'll record it, and we'll put signs up there and just do it.
So we need to get something in the paper that just to say that it's been abused so much that we are now putting up camera systems to watch over people, and I don't know, I guess we got to figure out a way we can find them.
I'd be tempted to say over park areas and recycle center.
Yeah,
I mean, because people, unless they're being watched, they're jerks.
The grass clippings.
What's that?
The grass clippings all over the glass.
I know. It just becomes that, and you get away with it once and it just becomes the norm. It's terrible. I mean,
How long
I
did it
understand
take
Bill's
us-
frustration, but on this end, it's way worse than it used to be too.
How long did it take us to get people to realize you can't take styrofoam up there? And it seemed like it was years to get people to realize that.
There's still not.
Well, throw on top of that, people just, like I said, I don't mean to harp on that, but just being jerks, chewing out my guy for, well, you'll take it, I'll pay my taxes kind of stuff, and leaving it there. I mean, just it's unbelievable how people act.
Billy said there was one guy that, or I think it was Clay, went through the used clothes deal over there, so sorting them, throwing them on the floor there. And then pretty soon she had what she wanted, and she just left them on the floor and left. Didn't throw them back in.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, he found back in the bales where there was a nest, people been sleeping in there. It's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, it just,
We had talked about possibly shutting down like at night or something. I told everybody there was one night I was up there at like 11:30 at night, there was a gas shortage closed.
But weren't we going to try to order something that remotely would...
so that would require the cameras, and that's why I'm saying cameras, because literally you could get, I'm sure you could catch people even. I mean, that'd be the great part. Find out the habitual ones who do that. But we would absolutely have to have a camera system in order to do the automated door closing. And there's been, in discussing that just with the guys and thinking about it a little bit, there could be issues with that. You know, what if you do miss the person sleeping in the box? I mean, that's terrible, but, you know.
Shouldn't be there anyway.
Yeah, but you'd have to have two-way cameras to see if there's nobody in, nobody coming in, and be able to hit that in an automated way. I don't think it's realistic at all to have.
Well, maybe if we just get cameras in there and see what happens from there, but it's time. It's time.
We could close it like at noon on Saturday till Monday morning.
You know, and those are the areas that are the worst. I don't know why we wouldn't consider them in the park areas too. They don't have to be wired. You can do wireless cameras.
It's motion sense.
Put up surveillance for all areas. I mean, I hate that. That's the world we live in. I don't like that it's that way, but it's the only way to get people to act right, or certain people. It's not everybody. It's a very small percentage, actually.
It's
So
getting worse.
what's the issue with, just throw out an example, close it down at 7 o'clock at night. I realize it's personnel, but what about if you closed it down like on the weekends like you guys are talking about? You close it at 5 o'clock on Friday and you're done till Monday.
Is that the biggest time frame for the biggest egregious?
I would think it is more on the weekends.
But
People
you
are
know,
cleaning up.
But a lot of people,
But-
I know.
They work during the
They
week,
work,
so
so
Yeah,
they're going to be.
and I hate to see that too, but I would say the weekends is when
But
it's...
what Kel said makes sense. If you close it at noon, you're training people to get if you're going to go to the recycling center, you need to get up there early Saturday morning and get your business done
It's
then.
like the dump, you know, you buy.
And if you don't, it's
2
going to be
o'clock,
closed.
you're-
And
you
if
better be at the
people,
dump.
if they glitch about it, you can say, well,
So why don't we just make
This is
sure the
why.
paper's aware we're discussing, we are putting up surveillance, and we're discussing limiting hours. You'll have input. I mean, there's people who want to do it, like in the summer, you want it open at 5 o'clock in the morning. That thing gets hot.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
It's a different issue at different times of the year.
Maybe
I'd
there's-
love to limit it, but not to limit access, but limit the problems we
Maybe
have.
if they know we're putting cameras, they'll start treating us better.
One,
Oh, I was just going to say, you were talking expenses. Before you had talked about maybe needing a packer up there. Is that still something you're looking at?
as far as the recycle direction we're going, so I forgot to mention that. Glad you brought up recycling. We actually have two possibilities as far as direction. The Colby Center is going to be closing sooner rather than later. We do have two proposals that we could use. Hill Trash Service in a single stream where we take everything, separate it, single it, and then we throw it all together in a compactor or in something, and it goes to Stutzman's in Hutchison. The other one is Sunoco, which is one that owns the balers. They are proposing to pick up everything. There's a cost breakdown, and Roger and I haven't been through that, but our offset money comes from the county, and it's the county's requirement to have a recycle center, or a recycle program. So we thought we'd analyze this in price and/or in what you're actually trying to do. Because the dirty recycling one it's a little weird. I mean, you're literally going to ask people to do this separating, and by the way, be very specific about this, and you're going to throw it all together. It's hard to believe that's workable. It's like you almost need to hide what you're doing, if that can make sense, and Sunoco wants everything separate and pays for things, or else it's no charge, and then they charge mileage to transport it. So we have two to compare. I don't think they're apples and apples at all. I think there's a real issue, and I'm kind of come around to this issue a little bit. Roger's been adamant about dirty recycling. But with the issues we have up there already, and all of a sudden you have this single thing that's outside that mixes all this stuff, tell me what that's going to attract. Even at an extra cost, you may save in labor what you might end up with there. So it may not be the one that's the cheapest, it just might be the smartest choice. I don't know that for sure. That goes back to the county offsets the city's expenses to do that and needs to be on board with it as well. But at first, my thing, and I'm always this way with Roger, is I don't care what feel good is, what's it cost? There's a crossover on this. There really is, and just in perception of what you're doing. But I do think there's a real cost in the single streaming.
When they're throwing it all together, you'll probably get a lot more trash.
I think you'll get it all thrown together. Inside, I think you'll get it all thrown together. Out there, I just think you lose the whole thing of specifically this to this. I mean, that's what you do when you recycle, and all of a sudden we throw stuff in one thing. It just doesn't. And again, like I said, I had to get educated on it a little bit and think about that before I realized, even at a higher cost, that may be the better way to go. But I don't know it's going to cost more. I assume it will.
In the big cities like out there in Arizona, and I've been there, you take all your trash stuff that you pulled out of your house and you take it to this place, and they have several places, and it's a big cement slab out there. You just dump it out on that cement slab, and they've got loaders just pushing it all to this hole, and it drops down in the hole. Then it packs it a little bit on trucks, and it goes out, and they build them a mountain. And that's what they're doing with it. They're not recycling nothing. Not anything. Everything goes in the same deal.
Wasn't that the way Goodland set up?
Yes.
It's all compactable?
Yep. Yep, they got a $1.some-odd million baler that they just bale it, and they can do. It's so efficient in doing it that way because it's compacted. You're not doing any air. And they have a huge facility for placement as well. Theirs is unique, certainly not recycling. So anyway, there will be more information on it. I'm glad you brought up recycling. I forgot to.
Well, when I seen Billy up there in the bottom match.
All right, I'll get equipment.
Okay.
I'll get eyes on it.
Did I hear a motion to accept and file the superintendent report?
Second.
Moved by Cale, second by Larry, all in favor? Clerk report.
Okay, I don't think I have too much. Just a couple of really small things. There's a thank you letter from Options Domestic Violence, just thanking you for your contribution, which was $1,500. And the only other thing I have is the commissioners did approve the law enforcement agreement, so we're good to go on that. So we review it. And we already talked about the grant. So, one other thing I'll mention: if we do go, if this all works out with the police department, I talked to Rodney Ritchie, and I feel like, along with him, the best thing to do right now is to rekey everything, because we really have no idea how many keys are out for like that external door over here.
Right.
So we're just going to get everything rekeyed. And I think we should probably go ahead and do that anyway, regardless of what happens over there, just so we know who's got keys and where they are. So he didn't think it'd be too terribly expensive, $300 or something. So anyway, that's it.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept and file the clerk report? Kale and David. Okay, council comments. David?
I will not be here for our next meeting. I'll be out of town. But that's it.
Kale?
I don't think I have anything.
There? Larry?
No.
Okay.
I can put them up as of a week ago.
What's that?
The
Yes.
dog signs, leashes.
Yes.
We just got them today.
And then I did talk to Terry Sawyer, who's supposed to give me the information that he had for the dog station that he had found in the back end. So he said he had some information he had found as far as the price.
I do
You know,
have,
when they were talking about water with the dog, Tom Small said he talked to you. and
We're getting water
you're
there.
getting water there.
And that wasn't ever discussed as far as on record either, but obviously the dog park came first and had that area picked out and was okayed, and they were still looking for sites and picked that site, not to make any issue of it, but there was thought put into it.
I still, with the issues that we have with Keller's Pond, wish we had an actual dog run where people, local people can take, to have more area to let dogs roam freely. You know, we talked about other locations of doing, and
I
that's,
still like Scott's idea up there by the airport.
I do too. Because, yeah.
At least they wouldn't have to build a whole lot of fence.
So,
More than one.
based on what Bill was saying, does anybody see
So I'm a
no
little curious, had you
complications
talked to
with
her, or
this?
had she
dog
discovered
park
the
and
issue
memorial?
of
Was he alluding to the fact that he was afraid that dogs would run to the memorial and
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm afraid of, he said, when you stop and you have your pet
That
with
must
you,
have been the case, just the
and
way
they
it
need
was
to go
handled.
too,
Yes,
well, as soon as you let them out, they're going to a spot really
Well, if
fast.
you stop at the restroom to go yourself, you
Right.
park there to walk over there, they are probably going to.
Well, they're supposed to be leashed too, so I would
You know what it is.
But there will be some that aren't.
How big it is. I'll tell you, you don't know how many people I see stop at our city park.
Yeah.
That are traveling, that let their dogs out. They let them go to the bathroom, they don't pick it up, they load the dogs back up, and I see it all the time.
right.
I guess
So,
that's
I
from
mean-
the cage store over on the Buffalo. I stood there one day, just watched that lady, and she looked at me, and I just kept looking at her. Finally, she walked down there and picked it up. I was just ready to say something.
Yeah.
That's the next thing, we're gonna need is signs for people to pick up their dog.
Yeah. Well, you guys, thanks for running the city while I was gone, and I will be gone 2 months next year again because I've signed up already, so. And I had a wonderful time out there, and it wasn't cold. So I hope we never go through that cold spell again.
Keep rubbing it in.
Yeah.
I had to call our neighbors that were watching over Nancy's 2 cats. I went, I'm sorry to have to do this when it's minus 27 out. But anyway. Okay, let's review the bills on ordinance 1048.
Do you need a hard copy to look at them, Linda?
Nope. I signed all the checks, so I had.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Offers on the opiated.
And I glanced through the other reports, but yeah, I don't know why, it wasn't
I guess
accepting
we're
my
blaming-
Google
they're blaming
password, and
on
then it
this.
wouldn't log into the Wi-Fi. I had to have a Wi-Fi to get into Google, I know,
Oh, yeah.
but I finally got it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it just kept, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's right.
Very clear or something.
No,
Still,
Yeah, I didn't see anything when I was signing checks.
it's been about a day and a half where
Just all
I
good
would have
with.
gotten vaccines to avoid that,
Yeah.
sore throat. But,
Uh,
a little weakness that I.
If everybody's had a chance,
I
or
would have been over.
it's okay with the bills, do I hear a motion to approve the bills on ordinance 1048?
So moved.
Been moved by Amanda, second by Cale, all in favor. Bills approved. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Amanda's up.
David's up.
Cale, then David.
Looking for that.
you offload